The senior advocate of Nigeria has expressed their position that Trump's military intervention threat in Nigeria is illegal. That is quite laughable and insulting, even on their personality and that of the audience. It's an insult that the Nigerian senior advocates are treading this path. How do I mean? Do we have senior advocates of Nigeria in the midst of these gross violations of fundamental human rights? Nigeria have issues of justice. The justice system has been faulted. Do we have senior advocates of Nigeria where there is doubt about dispensation of justice in this country? In a country where there is endemic corruption, the public office holders has been accused of embezzling billions of dollars, billions meant for public infrastructures and the collective good of Nigerian populace. They carted away with it. And yet, the so-called senior advocates failed to live up to their responsibilities. So they know the law. They understood the position of the law. So what are they saying in essence? You call yourself the senior advocates of Nigeria, and in the midst and under your watch, there are violations, multiple violations, defiance to the court rulings and injunctions, and yet you have not challenged such impunity. You are in a country where the national security has been breached, and you are not living up to responsibility to hold those saddled with the responsibility of protecting life and property of Nigerians accountable. And you are a senior advocate of Nigeria. Where is the place of the advocacy? Advocacy for what? For your stomach infrastructure or for the defenseless Nigerian population? There are several communities that have been overrun by the insurgents, and none of them have been brought to justice. And you have not questioned the government, the executive. Why is it so? You have not challenged the executive on the basis and position of the law. This is what the law says. And the same senior advocate of Nigeria watch Boko Haram terrorists being reintegrated into the Nigerian army, killing Nigerian security operatives, killing Nigerian citizens, indigenous communities. And yet, the senior advocates have maintained a very worrisome conspiracy of silence. I never knew they existed, or possibly could be based on certificates, professional designation, and the rest of them. In practice, where is that justice when they are talking about illegality? Now, let's see this from this perspective. What is the primary essence of government? Governance revolves around the people. When the people surrender their natural rights to an organized institution as governments to protect them, not to abuse that natural and fundamental human rights. Well, we've seen cases in Nigeria where there are gross violations of the same natural and fundamental human rights of Nigerians, and nobody is standing. Even the senior advocates of Nigeria are nowhere to be found. Unless they are advocating for themselves, what is their contribution to the national growth and development, to upholding the democratic rule and process, compliance to the rule of law, and upholding the human, natural, and fundamental rights and dignity? For me, it's a show of shame and an expression of total failure. They should be held responsible should Nigeria be classified as a failed state, because those who should have lived up to responsibility and accountability are nowhere to be found, possibly has been silenced or have compromised their position and their hands are tied. Where is the place of advocacy? Where is that advocacy? Advocacy for what? For your personal interests and pursuits, possibly when they present themselves as human rights activists, and the rest of them, once they are given certain political compensations, you see them going down the drain. What is that advocacy? Now, why should this senior advocates of Nigeria blame Mr. Donald Trump? Mr. Donald Trump is the president of America, and America happens to be the police of the nation, of the world, and the highest defender of human fundamental rights and the right to religious liberty. Why did Trump come step in the first instance? Because there is a breach of human fundamental rights. The Nigerians have sovereignty, but not absolute. Not absolute in the sense that if there are convincing multiple violations, these are the major reasons why Mr. Trump, American government, has to step in. Nigeria being a signatory to the United Nations that promotes, upholds, and defends the fundamental human rights. I'm very much convinced that the senior advocates of Nigeria is aware of these fundamental rights and international conventions and treaty, bordering on the rights of the people. The very essence of governance is to protect life, to prioritize the welfare, the safety, and security of the people. And when any state or member state of the United Nations violates this law, the right to protect, the responsibility to protect life and property of their citizens, the United Nations has the right to demand for accountability and explanation to that. There have been several multiple violations of people's rights, the right of Nigerian citizens. Does it mean that the senior advocates of Nigeria have not been seeing all these killings, abductions, and the rest of them? And they are keeping moods, being senior advocates. Well, I'm not insulting their positions and their person, but the truth must be said. If you have lived up to responsibility and duty to the states, or a geographical expression known as Nigeria, such wouldn't have been if you have lived up to your responsibility, holding the government accountable. If there are check and balances, upholding the rule of law, Nigeria wouldn't have descended to this abyss today. Now quoting the law, why you know you are contravening the law. What is state law are you referring to? That's military Trump military intervention threat is illegal. Illegal in what sense? That there are no gross multiple violations of human rights. People are being killed, including children, because it has not affected any of them. Children, defenseless, innocent children, are rounded up, forced in a cage, and set ablaze in a country where some people claim to be the senior advocates, that they are senior advocates of Nigeria. And Nigerian children, Nigerian women, Nigerian youths are being massacred in such a gruesome, demonic, dehumanizing manner, and yet they have not taken a stand to defend the human dignity, the human fundamental rights of Nigerian citizens. They failed to live up to their responsibility. This informed the position of the United Nations, America being a signatory to that, cannot watch such gross violations going on unchecked. There are abundant evidence. Have they not seen mass burials, massacre of indigenous communities, predominantly Christian communities? Have they not seen publications made about the names of people killed? Okay, they deserve such cruel deaths. It doesn't matter because they are not related to you, or possibly you needed to cover up for whatever political or economic interests. Now tell me why it's illegal. A country's sovereignty is not absolute, provided they remain and abide by the international laws and conventions. They promote and protect fundamental human rights, compliance to the rule of law. We see gross violations, and yet we have senior advocates of Nigeria watching Nigeria boiling, watching Nigeria being consumed by unimaginable state of insecurity. Nigerians can walk about or move about without fear of being either killed, kidnapped, apprehended, paying ransom. You can't imagine. The assailants, the kidnappers, the terrorists have taken the streets, not even in the forest anymore. Have they not had senators representing their senatorial district lamenting that they are finished, they are in danger? And the advocacy of this senior advocate of Nigeria is found nowhere, holding the governments of the day accountable. If they have done that, there wouldn't have been need for Trump's military intervention. There wouldn't have been need for countries of good conscience to begin to query the government's involvement, conspiracy over what is happening. Because you can't tell us you are a government and you are watching your own supposed citizens being killed in such a devastating, cruel, gruesome manner. And the perpetrators of this heinous crime have not been brought to justice. When Tinubu visited Benue after over 220 or thereabout massacre of communities, just in a single day, Tinubu, the president of Nigeria, asked questions to the IG or the DIG or the GOC in charge of the region. Were there anyone arrested? Where are the culprits? The shocking and damning response he got, the world was shocked that no one was arrested. Are the senior advocates of Nigeria not aware of this? What action did they take? In fact, they would have filed a suit against the security command in that region and even the president, the executive arm of the government, for failing in her responsibility to protect life and properties of innocent, defenseless citizens who have not committed any crime. The only crime they committed is because they found themselves within a country, a contention known as Nigeria, where their right to live is being usurped, is being caught. And the perpetrators of this heinous crime have not been brought to justice. Some will say that Nigeria has happened to them. We watch it, everybody was shedding tears and the rest of it. It was a very gory sight, gory video that shook the foundations of the internet, which is also, of course, at the disposal of the American government. People saw the level of atrocities and questioned the sincerity on the part of Tinubu's administration in fighting terrorism. The senior advocates of Nigeria are aware that the operations of different terrorist groups or Islamic jihadist groups have been established in Nigeria. What have they done to fight the illegality under their buttocks, under their two legs? You have not fought against this illegality going on in your country, affecting your citizens, forcing them to be subjugated. You have not fought it. And now you are talking about a government, the police of the world, who have questioned several occasions. Why is the government not living up to their responsibility? It's practically the failure of the government to live up to her responsibilities that resulted to these reactions. You said that a liberty, an expression of freedom of worship. But why are these people killed in the tens of thousands? You come and tell us that the perpetrators of this heinous crime will be brought to book. More people continue to die. Which of the book? Or they have not manufactured the book where they will pen them down and bring them to justice. It is quite unfortunate. It is no longer alleged killings. There are evidence abounding to that, and several people have attested. There are witnesses, survivors of this cruelty are witnesses to this. Even certain governors, the governor of Benue Plateau, have said it. This is a planned genocide, ethnic cleansing going on. What has the government done? What has the Nigerian senior advocate of Nigeria, or whatever they call themselves? I'm not interested in that. In as much as Nigerians are dying, do they deserve to die in such a cruel and demeaning way? What crime have they committed? Saying such move would amount to an invasion and a violation of Nigerian sovereignty under international law. So you recognize Nigerian sovereignty, which has under international law, the sovereignty that has been compromised, and Nigerians are being killed. Nigerians are being sacked, some fleeing their ancestral home to another, to Cameroon, to Benin Republic. Are these senior advocates not aware of this development? So they are now citing international law, under international law. Chai. And you had Femi Kayode, or what did he call himself? You see, Femi Fayode or Kayode and the rest of them, saying that Nigeria will defend itself against U.S. military invasion. Why has Nigeria not defended the people? Why has Nigerian government not defended the defenseless population of this country that are being killed, taken to the slaughter at will? And yet, the government is aware of the names of the sponsors of this assailants, but claim there is no political will. Then who should be blamed? Should America be blamed for intervening, for calling for justice? You know the sponsors of this. Several countries like the United Arab Emirates have published the list of these sponsors. What did the government do? Were they brought to justice? Under international law, the same international law that the senior advocates of Nigeria are quoting also promotes and recognizes the right of people to live, the right of citizens to life, to safety and justice. You don't know that any nation who violates these international laws are culpable, should be held responsible. You are not aware, or they are not aware of these implications of grossly violating the international law, fundamental human rights. Fundamental human rights are international law, enshrined, encapsulated in international laws, conventions, and treaty. So what international law are they talking about? Are we saying that some people are educated illiterates? They are not conversant with the provisions of the international law they are citing. The fundamental law, the right to life, the right to freedom of expression are universal international laws, which have been perceived to be grossly violated within the defined territory known as Nigeria. The Nigerian military are being killed within the Nigerian territory. Citizens are being chased out of their communities, killed. They end up in internally displaced persons. Some have not gone back to their ancestral homes in the last 15 years, 20 years. Yes, we have senior advocates who are now citing international laws. Why not accepting the impunity that is going on under their supervision as senior advocates of Nigeria, which are gross violations of international laws, treaties, and conventions? These are international laws. It is quite interesting, rather unfortunate. Let's have your own take regarding this development.